Welcome, everybody, to the John Webster Film YouTube channel. Feels like it's been a while since I did that traditional introduction, but this is like just me doing a live stream impromptu. We're talking about The Bad Batch, and I'm joined by Padawan Christina and Bendu Brian. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so obviously I don't know. I watched Star Wars, probably later in life than most people because my family was like, what's this space stuff? I don't like it. And I think I saw the first three, like I saw the first episode 1, The Phantom Menace in theaters, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like this. And then later on in life, I got into it, and then my Bendu, Brian, he really opened my eyes to Rebels and all of the lore, and now I'm just obsessed. And he's my Bendu. I'm his Padawan.
And Christina, Amy and I just recently had you on to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean and many other things. But Brian, this is your first time on the channel, so just we don't have anybody in the chat quite yet. But oh, hey, Amy. Speaking of, go ahead and introduce yourself to anybody who's watching.
Yeah, so I'm Brian. Hopefully it's coming through the right mic slot. If not, I can change that. It's probably a little echoey. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
I am a huge Star Wars fan. I think, like you, John, I grew up in the expanded universe in the 90s with the, Timothy Zahn and Kevin J. Anderson and all their novels leading up to when the prequels came out. And readjustments were made, and I feel like we're kind of in a new era now where that same kind of thing's happening, and it's really neat to have all these shows and canon video games and comics and all these things fleshing out the new canon, which I'm really happy with, because I'll be honest, I was so into Star Wars in the 90s, and then even the expanded universe, it went so long that it was too huge and it was too much to keep track of, and trying to get someone else into it is so daunting. And then when Disney bought it, that's the nice thing, is they kind of said, nope, here's what's official. It's pretty small and we're going to add to it over time. And it makes it much more digestible.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I know people like to look at it as, we have a canon now, but I've always liked to look at it as we move through like different phases of Star Wars. And I was talking to you about this back when I was into it in the sort of mid to late 90s. Star Wars was something very different. It was like the Star Wars trilogy, and there was the books that were fleshing it out, but the identity of Star Wars was very tied up in this concept of, you had the 3 films of Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and those are sort of my memories of what Star Wars was. And then the prequels come in and everything kind of shifts.
Yeah.
And as you say, we're in that again with the new films and the rise of Disney Plus and all of these different ways of doing Star Wars storytelling. So it's weird. I wonder, like, we've got canon now, but what happens in like 10 or 15 years down the line? Do they decide to go in a completely different direction again?
Disney can reimagine whatever they want.
Yeah, they won't call it reboots; they'll call it reimaginings.
We're reimagining,
and that's as much of a Star Wars tradition as anything. I mean, Ewoks, the Caravan of Courage, and the Battle for Endor. Like, Sindel Tawani, is she canon? Because she has a Lucasfilms banner at the beginning of her movie.
Yeah.
But I would think no. But who knows?
I feel like I need to be worried now because everybody's traditionally gone on about whether I've got my beard going, and now you're stealing the spotlight, Brian. I don't know how I feel about that.
The key is the silver hair. The light catches it. You'll have it soon.
Oh no. No, actually that I'm fine with. It's the lack of any that concerns me, which is why I always have my strategically placed hat.
And it is a wonderful hat, speaking of trilogies.
Yeah, exactly. And actually it's funny because I was very tied up in Lord of the Rings, like sort of in the latter years of the prequels, because I got, this is probably controversial to say, but I was actually a big fan of episode 1 when it came out. And I was like, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. And I loved the movie. But then Lord of the Rings came out and it kind of pulled me away from the other two films a bit. But it was the Clone Wars that eventually sucked me back in and made me just completely fall in love with that era of the Star Wars universe. I understand you were quite a big fan of Clone Wars. So
yeah, and honestly, it does. It makes you care that much more about episode 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really changed it for me. And I love the characters that they brought in. I mean, that's all Dave Filoni, right? And all of these kind of like this animated, little thing that's going on behind the scenes, and then eventually it's the Mandalorian. But it's all it took what was there, and I love how they expanded on it and gave it depth so that I don't know, it's like something that I care about now. And I thought of Star Wars as, I don't know, I mean, I thought the prequels weren't, it was overhyped and like didn't deliver, and whatever, all the negativity, everyone knows the criticism if you're watching this, so I don't need to rehash. But like, I love what they're doing with this. I don't even know, it's like subverse, but it's all canon, but it's still, it's not like super mainstream, except the Mandalorian is now. So
yeah, I mean, I've been kind of singing the praises of the animated shows for a number of years. Like, no, seriously, you have to watch these shows because like they just take what's established in the case of Clone Wars. It took what was established in the prequels and really developed it and made it all come alive. And in my opinion, I'll be honest, Anakin never quite worked for me in the films, but I love him in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And his story and his dynamic with Ahsoka, repping Ahsoka and Rex with my shirt. But yeah, it just made me fall in love with those characters. Thrawn, of course.
This is who we stand in this household. Ahsoka's like right below, though. Right below.
Yeah, and so for me, it's like it's almost gotten to the point where Clone Wars is like here, while the actual like episodes 2 and 3 especially are kind of like on the lower tier beneath it. It's like if there's any inconsistencies or differences, I say no. Clone Wars has the canon of it.
Yeah, well, and it's too funny because like, okay, the movies, they have a story to tell, and they only have 6 hours to do it, or 7 hours, whatever the total runtime of the prequels are. And there's all these characters, like General Grievous gets 5 minutes of screen time, maybe. Darth Maul gets 2 lines, and then you look at how they've built him out. Darth Maul is a full-fledged 3-dimensional character in canon now because these shows said, no, there's a lot more to do with him. Let's do it. The comics too. And it's almost like for in the 90s, the expanded universe, all those old anthologies like Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina, Tales from Jabba's Palace, all these characters you see for half a second and you think, oh, that guy's cool looking. What's his story? And then Clone Wars lets you do that.
Yeah, it's utterly brilliant, and I like. Granted, I was not watching the entire show like as it was on the air, but when I had like fully caught up, I felt like the soul crushing disappointment of when it was canceled and where it was left off. I'm like, no, don't do this to me. And we were stuck for a lot of years, just kind of in that position of having to move on. But then that announcement came, in, what was it, 2019, that they were finishing Clone Wars. And like as brilliantly, and first of all, that was so brilliantly done, especially the finale, which I think if you put those episodes together, it ranks as like one of the best Star Wars films that's ever been made. But I also had this feeling of like, but I want more. It's like 12 isn't enough. Can we please have more? And then they pull a rabbit out of their hat, and it's now we're gonna make a sequel show about the Bad Batch, who have kind of lived, in animatic form, ever since the series was canceled, and we got to see those story reels. But then they actually made the episodes in season 7, and now we're getting to continue that in a way that continues on the story of Clone Wars in a sort of forward-thinking, like moving forward. And I think Filoni didn't want to necessarily look back, but he's moving forward with that part of the story. So, Christina, I want to give it over to you because I want to know exactly like how much of Clone Wars have you seen, and like what was your sort of investment level going into this new series?
Brian, I mean, can you help me? Brian's been my Bendu.
She did not make it to the Bad Batch episodes in season 7.
Where?
But I'll tell. She is very familiar now with D. Bradley Baker's ability to basically just carry episodes as a bunch of different characters because all these clones get unique voices. And the fact that Disney just said, yeah, you know what, let's just have the D. Bradley Baker show. Because he is the voice of the Bad Batch. He's all of them. He's every clone you see on TV. If you watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, he's Appa, he's Momo. He's kind of this generation's Frank Welker, the guy who used to do all the voices from Scooby-Doo and Raja and Abu and Aladdin and all that. He was doing animal voices and beast voices forever on Teen Titans and all these other shows. And now he just gets to do different human voices and try and give a different personality to each of these clones, which is kind of perfect because that's kind of what the writers are doing too.
Yeah, I mean, just for an example of like how brilliant this guy is, he's doing, all this work in Clone Wars, Bad Batch, Rebels, and all that. And he's also Klaus on American Dad. I mean,
the murderous fish.
I really don't think there's anything that the man can't do. So he's just utterly brilliant. So to my mind, it's like long overdue that he gets something where he is so totally in the spotlight.
He's booked.
Yeah.
So I will say, like, Brian and I, it's like he's been giving me like the the highlights of Clone Wars. He's like, okay, so these episodes you're gonna love, and like, I mean, we went through a couple seasons though.
Yeah, like we played Fallen Order, so I was like, would you like to see more Night Sisters? And that's half of season 3, and
I think we went on from season 3 throughout for, I mean, at least a long while. Yeah. But either way, I am kind of going backwards in a way. So I'm like a newer fan, I guess. Obviously I watched like episodes 1 through 9, But as far as, the other lore, or I don't know. I see it as like a subversive lore. But as far as that goes, I went backwards. I went to, do we do Rebels or Fallen Order first?
Ooh.
I think we did Rebels first.
I think we did Rebels, then Fallen Order, and
Yeah.
then we got into Thrawn, the novels.
Yeah, it's like I'm going backwards. So I've had some interesting, things, and I'm like, okay, what time? Oh, and Mandalorian. I mean, obviously. So I went from like all the episodes to Mandalorian, then Rebels, then Fallen Order, then Clone Wars. So I kind of went backwards. But and then obviously like I started reading the Thrawn novels because I'm obsessed with Thrawn. So yeah, I'm just kind of going in at my own pace, and I'm finding things. Like, I love that it's so expansive that I can find things that I really like. And like, oh, I love the Night Sisters because I saw them in Fallen Order. Well, like, let me watch these Clone Wars episodes about the Night Sisters. And so going into the Bad Batch, like, obviously, thank God I have my Bendu with me, Brian, where I can be like, he can help me fill in the blanks. But I'm glad. I like how they make, and I guess you have to credit Filoni with this, but I like how they make it still accessible. It's not, here we go again. It's not like Marvel where I'm watching the movie and I'm like, well, I need to watch 17 movies to understand this. Yeah, there's Easter eggs, but how many people watch The Mandalorian and how many people watch Clone Wars? Like you don't need, you can start a series and need minimal associations with the other things. I will, like The Mandalorian. Okay, when Ahsoka came on The Mandalorian, that was the first time I ever saw her. I wish it was the other way around. I really do, because I would have screamed. But that's not how it worked for me. But I'm like, this person's cool. Okay, then I watched Rebels. She's amazing in Rebels. Then I watched Clone Wars, and I'm like, I don't know. I guess I'm kind of retroactively learning about it, but it doesn't make it any less special. It makes me more interested to learn more, to like dig deeper. So yeah, I'm going a little bit backwards, but it's because the stuff's good.
I'm containing myself because I feel like we already
I know, right?
We went far enough on the last one, so.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. I mean, it's true though. Okay, how many people watched The Mandalorian and were like, didn't know who Ahsoka was? A lot of people did, but
yeah,
did it make it any less badass? No.
It's interesting because I'm really interested to hear people's reactions who don't have all that backstory, because like there's no way for me to sort of divorce that from from my experience of that episode. And like with this show, I'm carrying like the full knowledge of every single episode of Clone Wars. And so it's interesting to me to get feedback from people who don't have all that backstory knowledge. And I'm curious as to how this show plays to people who haven't seen the Clone Wars.
Well, I was going to say the beginning was strong. That's what I liked about this show. The beginning was super strong. I mean, Brian and I were kind of having a running commentary as it was going on. We're like, oh, and Brian pointed it out. He goes, oh, that's Kanan's master. And we're like, oh, really? That's Kanan's master? And then all of a sudden there's Kanan. We both screamed at the same time. Like,
I also I like it. They basically kept it, but they did change the Kanan canon a little bit with how Order 66 went down. And
I do want to talk about this a little bit, because this is actually not the first time that they've done this, because the version of the Siege of Mandalore that we get in the actual show differs from the little snippets we get of it in the Ahsoka novel. And so it's funny because this whole big deal has been made about how everything's canon now. But again, I kind of always looked at all of this as stories evolve. And that's what the entire like current generation of Star Wars storytelling is right now. It's another evolution of that. So I don't always get hung up on all those differences. I'm like, you're not gonna tell Filoni that he has to stick strictly to something that somebody else did when he didn't know that he was going to actually get to make the Siege of Mandalore. I think both are valid. It's like when you're reading that book, that's the version of the story that matters. But when you're watching the show, this is the story that's being told. And same thing here, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an adaptation, right?
Yeah, and it's close enough. You can just say the comic is a rough draft and the show delivered this unified vision with everything else. It happens on Fowler. Captain Gray is there. All the other stuff is just kind of detail. Master Balaba falls, and I mean the key story is still all there, and it's really cool to see Kanan or Caleb interacting with the Bad Batch before it all went down. Yes, Freddie Prinze Jr. We were talking about this before. How great for continuity that he's voicing this little boy, but also he sounds like a man voicing a little boy.
No, that was not right. I was like, what is going on? Who's sock puppet?
I let it go because I was just so excited to see, little Kanan or Caleb and that it was the same actor. I know it didn't sound like a kid, but I was just like, I don't care. You know what?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I really loved his Kanan, but I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar probably could have done a little better little boy voice.
Oh my gosh. I was just thinking, I was like, you know what? Disney probably just had him on a contract and they're like, hey, you got to do this. It's in your, I don't know.
Yep.
It was weird. It was a little weird and it took you out a little bit. But at the same time, I was too excited to see. I mean, I was like, is Kanan going to be in the show? And then he pieces out. But it was cool. I loved it. Though. I thought it was.
What it does, it instantly sets you on the edge. Particularly if you're someone who's bringing the experience of Rebels to the show, because as soon as you see, especially if you know who his master was, as soon as you see her, it's like, oh shit, I know where this is going.
and I think this is what they've done really well. And Christina was talking about this earlier. It's these shows, they're doing a really good job of making them accessible. If all you've seen are the core movies, you see that these are Jedi, you see the Order 66 hologram come in, and you know that those two characters are in danger from the clones. Without seeing Rebels, you're still invested in this Padawan because you've just heard Obi-Wan's fighting General Grievous, so you know roughly this is about when Order 66 happens. So even if you don't know him from Rebels, you're like, ooh, it's the Ralph Wiggum in the back of the bus. I'm in danger.
Yeah, that's the thing. You could have watched it and not known, and you're still okay. But when you do know, it's I mean, we squealed like little girls on the couch.
Yeah, and when Tarkin shows up, if you know who Grand Moff Tarkin is, if you remember him, even just from Episode 4, you're super thrilled to see him, and he looks so much like Peter Cushing. They've done a great job. Whoever's doing his voice is doing a great Peter Cushing impression.
Yeah, that's Stephen Stanton, who has done Tarkin's voice for pretty much everything now. He was on Clone Wars. He did it on Rebels. I mean, he also did the voice of the older Obi-Wan Kenobi in Rebels as well. He's another one of those very talented voice actors.
Seriously, and at this point, from his rank insignia, he's a fleet admiral. He has not reached Grand Moff yet, but when
I found that out from my handy dandy org chart.
That's right.
I Googled. But I have this huge org chart with all of the badges. It reminds me of back in the day when I had like the Game of Thrones family trees and my iPad or whatever. But yeah, I have this whole org chart, and Brian, I was like, wait, what's his badge? And we looked it up, and they said he was admiral, but he was fleet admiral. That's what his.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's...
Although the only thing that does amuse me is, and this isn't a thing just with this show, they made some changes when they came back for season 7 of Clone Wars, was that they started to age some of the characters, like and Admiral Yularen, from Clone Wars, started to look older, and they got Tarkin looking closer to his Peter Cushing, a New Hope, the look, but he was, but back in like season 5 of Clone Wars, which was probably only like a few months before this, he was looking much younger and healthier. So it's been a grueling.
That's when Anakin busts him out of prison or whatever. Busts him out of he was captured and Anakin saves him.
Well, that was back in season 3. Season 5 was when Ahsoka was put on trial.
Yes,
and he was part of that. Yeah,
when he was very pro-clone, it seemed like.
Yeah, I don't know. It's mentioned in this show that he wasn't. I think that was actually part of the debates that they were having, that he was having with Anakin in the Citadel story arc, was like his different military ideas and stuff, which is why Echo says he's not a fan of clones.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when he shows up in Bad Batch, even if you have no history on him, it's interesting because he comes across like the dean of Animal House, like just he's there to ruin the Bad Batch's fun. He's not a fan of theirs. He's not a fan of anything that isn't strictly in order and by the rules. And they even say they've sent an Imperial to come and look over all the clones. So with zero context, you know this guy's going to be the stick in the mud.
Well, and what I also kind of love about him is, and some other people have remarked on this, it's the fact that apparently the whole deal with why they went for conscripted soldiers over the clones is budgetary reasons.
Which makes sense, because you have diminishing returns. They're not just half the price, but you get twice the use out of a conscripted soldier. Look at Rex and all them. The whole point of these clones is you were able to get them to 20 years old, in essence, in 10 years. They age twice as fast as other people. But it means less than 20 years after the Clone Wars, all of these clones are old men. Yeah. They're Rex in Rebels age, and
you mean daddies, right?
Yeah, they're zaddies. Let's be real.
Yeah,
but there's a diminishing return. Whereas if you recruit someone, train them up for half the cost, then you get twice as much use out of them, because it's going to be decades before they're too old to be of service.
Yeah, so that's like a part of, I guess, I mean, even though like I'm new, I'm a Padawan, excuse me. That's what, obviously. So I'm a Padawan at all of this. So when I'm looking at, and I know like the Thrawn novels gave me a lot more insight into the politics. But yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, why do you want to get rid of the clones? Is it because you can't control them? Or, I mean, they have this Bad Batch, right? And so they've got like, their chips don't work. They're not going to follow the orders. And then, I mean, it was so funny though. Like it definitely felt like a kid show with Crosshair, where it's like, yeah, if I had to pick one that's like a fake person, it would be that guy. Why are you still hanging out with that fake guy?
Yeah, when they said someone from the Bad Batch reported that they didn't kill the Padawan, it was not exactly a mystery who.
Yeah, I wonder who. The guy that like...
Well, it's kind of the worm tongue thing. It's like, who do you think is the untrustworthy guy amongst the Rohirrim? Could it be that slimy looking guy that doesn't quite fit in with everybody else?
One that's screaming at you about order. I mean, it was so, I was like, okay, that's a little obvious, but
I mean, the thing about, and yeah, it is obvious from like an audience point of view, but the nice thing about Crosshair is, and this is where, seeing the Bad Batch arc from Clone Wars comes into play. It's when you get a wider view of like how they all interact with each other. Crosshair is kind of like the dark-edged, sarcastic one who's like, he's the sniper. It's sort of his personality, but they all kind of really fit well together. So in a weird way, it's like, yeah, it was obvious, but it also really made me sad because I liked his dynamic in the group, and because they all, you know, sort of feed off of each other really well as far as their, you know, their group interaction. It was like, oh, that sucks. But then, like, I'm interested to see where that story goes, and whether he comes back from that, they're able to, you know, for lack of a better term, fix him and bring him back into the fold, because I really did like that moment in the cell between him and Omega, who we're gonna get to because she's amazing, where she's like, you know, I know what you're going to do. It's not your fault. So it's like it's almost like she's prepping him for the time when he's going to realize what he's done, and, you know, to sort of soften that blow and try and let him know that he didn't have a choice.
Yeah. And it is. He was the jaded cynic in the Clone Wars. Like, that's his group dynamic. And even with a somewhat working inhibitor chip, you know, he disagreed with Hunter, but he wasn't, you know, he wasn't full on trying to commit a coup. He was questioning the leadership and saying, maybe you shouldn't be in charge if you're not going to follow orders. But he was still, I think, loyal to the group on some level.
Yeah,
and
well,
that's why they had to dial up the inhibitor chip on him.
Yeah, because any time that they weren't in a situation that, like, involved following orders, following the orders of the Empire, he was like part of the group. He was on board when they're going through the training sequence. It's like, you know, he's completely following Hunter's lead, and you know, I love that moment with him and Wrecker when he says, "Wrecker, knife," and, you know, he throws the knife and then he takes out the sniper and hits
the
it.
proto dark trooper.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was such a good action sequence, and the Admiral Tarkin watching. I mean, I just love the imagery of him watching from the top, and then he doesn't even react. Like, you know, they're all like congratulating each other at the end, and he just is walking away, like he has his back to them. But I mean, that whole sequence was so fun, and it's a great way to, you know, build their camaraderie and show off, you know, what each of them does well. Yeah. I mean, gosh, it was
specialties. Fun. And how neat is in that sequence, before, when we hear the other clones refer to them and how they refer to themselves, they say they're defective clones. But in that sequence, when it's the Kaminoans talking to Admiral Tarkin, they talk about how they are the enhanced clones.
Yeah, I noticed that.
They're specialists. That's their quote-unquote defect. And just Matthew's comment, the fact that Crosshair says good soldiers follow orders, but he doesn't say it like it doesn't come across super brainwashed. It comes across more conversational than when you heard other clones say it. And I thought that was a really nice touch.
Yeah, I do want to pop up. Reflective Rambling says, you know, why did they have to mess with him more? Well, because he still had to, like, part of himself. It was like a mixture between the Order 66 programming and his sort of natural state. So he still had, it's just like his tendencies, you know, were kind of altered, but he still had, you know, a bit of free will. He was still himself.
Yeah, if that inhibitor chip wasn't boosted, I don't believe at the end of episode 1 he would have pointed a blaster at any other member of the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
I think to get him to the place where he was willing to shoot at them, they had to boost his inhibitor chip to actually betray his squad.
Yeah, and of course, when Tarkin says that, can you know, boost him, like, you son of a bitch.
I know. He's evil. That's how he rolls.
He had a rough growing up period on Eriadu.
Oh my gosh.
I do want to go ahead and let's just jump to the chase and
Omega?
get to Omega.
Omega. I know. Why do they all have Australian accents? Can I ask that?
Well, no, they're New Zealand accents.
They
because it's
Tamura Morrison
plays Jango Fett and in The Mandalorian Boba Fett. So it's a take on all the D. Bradley Baker did basically sort of an imitation of that voice for the clones, and so it's kind of up in the air as to like is Omega or I'm sorry, I just love to call her Omega because I love
I like
her
Omega.
accent.
The show is Omega and the Bead Beach.
So
in the bead. Wait, we were trying to figure this out earlier. It's like it's the bead beach, right? Just try to say that out loud, everyone.
Which I loved what you posted on Twitter, Christina. I'm not going to repeat it because it would be different when I say it. But
what, the bad bitch watches the Bad Batch?
Yeah. Which I thought was great.
It's like bad beach.
But like she is so great. I loved her instantly as soon as she like sits down in the cafeteria with them. And I also want to say something about the animation of the show, which I think they've even amped up since season 7 of Clone Wars, because like when she does her little wave, there's almost like her body is sort of waving along with it. The fluidity of the animation in this is so good and makes everything feel more real, even though it's very clearly stylized animation, but there's just sort of a tangible aspect to the animation that they couldn't have even dreamed of this when they first started Clone Wars.
To me, this may be a matter of opinion. This looks better than season 7 of Clone Wars, and season 7 of Clone Wars was such an immense upgrade. Like when you go back and watch season 1 of Clone Wars, you're like, look at these PlayStation 1 characters. The Bad Batch, everyone looks great. The move, like just everything.
I mean, how do you feel compared to Rebels?
So Rebels to me falls between season 6 of Clone Wars and season 7 of Clone Wars.
Okay.
And another thing is they were going for a different visual style. With Bad Batch, they're very clearly like going stylistically for this is Clone Wars, but they're kind of pushing it in really refining it and doing some more stuff with the animation, but it's very clearly meant to mimic the same style. Rebels, on the other hand, I believe I remember reading that it was based on the art of Ralph McQuarrie. So, yeah.
And honestly, Emperor Palpatine at the end of Rebels looks better than Emperor Palpatine in season 7 of Clone Wars, just because season 7 of Clone Wars, they're trying to keep it loyal to how he looked in the rest of Clone Wars. Like, Count Dooku has a very specific look in Clone Wars that is Christopher Lee evoking, but does not look like Christopher Lee.
Well, yeah, and that's like, a lot of people sort of criticize the character designs of Clone Wars, but I always love them. I love the angular, stuff. I love that Obi-Wan's beard is very it's got the sharp edges and stuff. I just love it.
Movie, it's always like, okay, what are they going to do with long hair? How are they going to get around having to animate long hair moving at all times? And even with Omega, they're like, you know what? She's going to have pretty short hair, and it's going to go slinking right back. Oh yeah, well, yeah. We were trying to figure out who that Jedi is. That she had like purple hands with green palms.
I mean, in a way, it's almost creepier if you just don't know who it is. It's just it's just another dead Jedi.
Is it possibly a 5th or 6th way that Shaak Ti could have died? No, not in this case, but it could have been.
It's not Kanan. That's all that matters, right?
No.
Or sorry, Caleb.
It's like in season 7 in the first episode of the Siege of Mandalore, we get like Obi-Wan saying, Shakti is protecting the Chancellor. It's like, are we going to see her fate in this iteration? Oh, no.
Nope, it's still going to be ambiguous. To this day, I don't know what the canon explanation for General Grievous's cough is. At some point, there was a fight over whether it was Mace Windu from Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars or whether it was Mace Windu from that one novel. And then I think they just said it doesn't matter.
Well, no, yeah. Once the CG animated show started, he pretty much always had the cough.
Right. So it's he's an organic being, mostly in droid bits now, so he coughs.
Yeah. I will say though, like and this is what I'm talking about like appreciating like different phases that Star Wars goes through. I love that like era of like Clone Wars media just prior to Revenge of the Sith, like with the micro series where Grievous is like the most badass.
He's so intimidating in that. And I don't know who did his voice, but that metallic voice, like that's for a while that was my Grievous voice. I rejected the Matthew Wood in Episode 3 voice.
Especially since like I've had time to get used to it through the Clone Wars animated series, and I'm fine with that that version now. But like when he popped up in Episode 3 after being used to the micro series, I was like, what the hell is this?
Like they went for a Bela Lugosi type voice and it worked because he was like blah blah, and then like just walks down to the front of the bridge and says stay at your positions and just hangs out. Yeah, it really did.
He's like in the micro series though, he's like, I will kill you, Jedi. And then he pops up in the movie and he's like, what's the situation, Captain?
The negotiator. Yeah.
But
what is the canon Shakti death? Is it she was at the Jedi library and Anakin caught her in deep meditation, or?
Well, it's all deleted scenes, I think.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So there's no like definitive canon thing, because there's a version where Anakin kills her in the temple. There's another deleted scene where she's killed on Grievous's ship by Grievous.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just it's one of those things that they could probably change again in like final canon, and yeah.
Well, and she was stationed on Kamino for a while, like towards the end of the war. So I am choosing to believe maybe that's her under the sheet. Who knows? Oh, just doing.
Well, wait. Back to the bead bat. Wait. Shh. The bead beach.
Which, by the way, I am kind of cracking up at all the like comments that I've seen online from people who like didn't watch Clone Wars and stuff. I see people like, did Disney really let Filoni call their new Star Wars animated show The Bad Batch?
The Bead Beach. Well, no. Okay, so wait. What do we think? Okay, what right now so I thought I love the first episode overall. I thought that was really great. It was super exciting having, the knowledge that I do now. I'm jealous I didn't have it for The Mandalorian. That's the whole thing, though. I feel like Disney, like now, after the success of The Mandalorian, thank you. Well, duh. Okay, so I don't know. Like the whole thing with Disney, I always look at everything. So I do marketing research for companies and everything. So I'm always looking at stuff from the corporate point of view. I love The Boys show because it's funny to me to think about like evil corporate, and like Brian and I have this whole joke about the South Park version of Mickey Mouse and how we like, haha, like the Jonas Brothers episode is our favorite. Anyway, not to go off on that tangent, but I always think of things from the corporate perspective. So, what episodes 7, 8, and 9 didn't do for Disney is what The Mandalorian did, and Baby Yoda. Obviously, Baby Yoda will be. I mean, I can't say, I can't speak to the future, but it will be soon, if it's not already, the best-selling, character of all time. Everyone's obsessed.
It's their Pikachu.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that reinvigorated a new era, and it was almost a surprise. I mean, they scrapped all those movies, right? And now they went to Disney Plus. Now they're into the streaming and everything. And this is the first kind of obviously Filoni was deeply involved in The Mandalorian, but this is the first Filoni animated in this new era. So I feel like there's so much more behind this. I mean, this is the first show after The Mandalorian. We don't have the Boba Fett series, we don't have the Ahsoka series. This is the first one that's animated that they're doing. It's an interesting choice. I wonder if they did it because of timing purposes. I'm sure animated probably takes a lot less time to put together and everything. But it's all really interesting to me that they chose this story, right? What do you guys think about that? Choosing this story to release on the heels of the success of Mandalorian.
I'll go ahead and comment on that, Brian, because
I'll look at it from an era point of view. I really like that it's okay. We've seen Order 66. It's almost like, how many times have we seen Bruce Wayne's parents been killed on film? We have seen that alley probably 12 different ways, live action, animated, CG, and it feels like Order 66. We've gotten to see what happened. It's like the "Where were you when JFK was shot" moment. We get to see it in the video games. We get to see it from Cal Kestis's perspective. In the movie, we get to see all these members of the Jedi Council. In the comics and now in Bad Batch, we see it with Caleb Doom, and it's that moment that's really pivotal. But there aren't a lot of series that look at, okay, what happened right after? What happened when, the previous Supreme Chancellor all of a sudden said, now I'm an emperor and this is an empire. What happened in the days following that? The Darth Vader comics cover it a little bit, but only from his perspective. Here we're...
by the way, I have to say, I love that, the, Kaminoans are, we have a contract with the... we have a contract for more clones, and Tarkin is like, you had a contract with the Republic.
Yep.
This is now the Empire. It's like, dude, you guys just changed your name.
Yeah, you're the same.
That's all you did.
Changed your name tag. The same guy's in charge.
They had a reorg, okay?
The Senate of the Republic is now the Senate of the Empire.
Excuse me, we had a reorg. Don't refer to me as my old job title.
But
I got these nice little squares. When did the squares come in?
I think they had the squares in the Clone Wars.
It's like you can see at the towards the very end, you can see clones on the ships looking very much like Imperial officers. So it's like they were moving in that direction. But when did
they make the clothes? When did the factories make the clothes and everything? It's like, oh.
Yeah. But I will say one of the really freaky things about this series has been how quickly that changeover happens, and
they're already blockchaining people.
Yeah.
Which is great because it's something that they really make a big deal out of in The Mandalorian. And it's going to be part of this new thing, but it makes sense. The Empire immediately is like, yo, there's no privacy. If you're going anywhere, if you're going to have a job, you're going to have a, what do they call it? Chain code?
A W-2.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, but it is. Are you trying to leave?
We're going
to add that to your blockchain. It's like a passport that's also a career tracker. That's also, it's removing all anonymity because you're under an empire. Yeah. And it is really interesting to see this era from the perspective of the clones, because what is going to happen to them? We know they're not going to last that long in the Empire. They're going to be replaced by conscripted soldiers, partially because Tarkin and the Empire, I'm sure, are worried. Kamino has the ability to pump out 250,000 soldiers every cycle, every few years or whatever. what if they put in their own order, their own inhibitor chip order to turn against the Empire at some point? Like Kamino is not going to last. They're not going to keep their cloning facilities under their control for long.
Well, yeah, and there's already like dissent in the ranks because the one is like behind the prime minister's back, like let the Bad Batch
out of there.
Escape, presumably for the sake of Omega, and
Lama-Su.
I know we do have to talk about who Omega is. Like what? I mean, she has to be force sensitive. I thought the first thing with they kept calling her like a healer's assistant. And I'm like, oh, maybe she has force healing, but I don't know.
I think that was so Lama-Su could keep her under watch.
Yeah.
Lama-Su is like the medical Kamino director.
She's totally force sensitive, though.
I'm trying to think. Actually, I think Lama-Su is actually the prime minister. So.
Oh, who am I thinking of? Nala.
Long neck lady.
Yeah, shoot, I'm mixing them up. There's long neck lady and long neck guy.
Yeah, I just Lama-Su is the prime minister of Kamino. I don't know who. It's been a while since I'm not up on my studying on Kamino. So.
She was big in season 7 of Clone Wars. She was in episode 2. She's in Bad Batch, and she has this link with Omega where she cares more about Omega getting away and living than about the Bad Batch getting away. Like she's
sticking
her neck out, literally.
Very long.
Yeah. All right. So Tonwei or Tonwei, or I think she's the one who in episode 2 is like, Master Jedi, we've been expecting you.
That's why I'm here.
Oh my God, that is like my absolute favorite delivery probably in the entire. That's matched with Natalie Portman when she says, "So this is how liberty dies," to thunderous applause, which is a great line, but Ewan McGregor just like not being a good poker player at all. He's like, "That's good news."
Yeah. But yeah, so okay, Omega. It's interesting because she presumably spends most of her time with this.
Okay, all right. So you're saying there's more than 2. Okay.
But so if Omega's spending most of her time with Nala Se, why does she have the New Zealand accent? She would presumably only have that if she's picking up her accent from clones, or if the New Zealand accent is just programmed into her genetic code. I don't think that's
it's all inherited from Jango Fett. So
using that, then she has some Jango Fett in her. But how do you feel about the Palpatine Jango Fett mashup idea?
I'm not here for that.
You're not here for that? You don't think she and Sheev?
I'm sorry, and this is part of why I hate that reveal in Rise of Skywalker, because it just feeds all of those conspiracy theories of it's like in Game of Thrones, everybody's a Targaryen, and now it's like everybody's a Palpatine.
Everybody's a Palpatine.
Everybody
Snoke, Omega.
Stole his DNA.
Yeah, I hope it's a lot more interesting than that.
I did see someone took a picture where it's a pose of Omega with her arms, like her hands are clasped, and they're like, look at this. Now look at this shot of Palpatine. Same pose. It's like, I guess. I mean, people pose. I don't know if that's evidence. The hair is the closer indicator for me. Like, if there is evidence that she's a Palpatine clone, it's that she's probably force sensitive based on her conversation with Crosshair, and then her hair is pretty Palpatine-esque.
Could she be an Anakin clone?
Her hair's too light, right? Like, she doesn't have Jango Fett hair color. She doesn't
and she loves sand.
She does.
Yeah.
Be Anakin. Yeah. Good call.
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something that's a little different.
Which, by the way, I'd say I really love that moment in the second episode where she sees dirt for the first time, and it's like so fascinating to her.
Camino, isn't it all water and platforms?
Yeah. And like, and I really have to commend them for, especially since we've seen especially in the animated shows, like okay, you've got your main characters and then you've got the kid character. It would be very easy for us to be like, oh, not again. But
we have a friend who did that on Facebook.
He posted it on Facebook today.
Like Brian and I were tag teaming on it. Like, no.
It's like you know what? Oh, we don't want a little kid tagging along in our show. You know what? I really did have that same thought about Ahsoka and then about Ezra. And I stand corrected on both. And at this point, I'm just going to trust that Dave Filoni has an idea, and I'm going to roll with it and see what happens.
Well, and I like the fact, that she fits in really well with them. It's not sort of, and look, I came to absolutely love Ezra. He's a great character, but there is that tendency that when you put in like a kid character, he's going to be like a pain in the butt. He's going to be an annoyance for like a while. Well, yeah, but he did kind of fit in that mold of being like
he was a liability to the team or an annoyance.
Well, we always laugh. I mean, that was the thing a friend of ours said was, what did she say? She said something like they're hey, I mean, Luke's technically alive.
That's right. Luke was born basically on Empire Day.
Yeah, and same with Ezra.
Yeah.
And how old is she? But she's older, though. Wouldn't she be older then? Or
she would, unless they changed their tactics, she would age twice as fast. So if she appears 12, she's like 6. I don't know how
we're seriously entertaining this.
No, I'm always doing, like, I've been doing the math. We should get into this a little bit later, because I want to, it's not predict, but speculate who could show up.
Jump on Cassie, guys.
Ezra never really grew. I loved his, he was the first one that had, well, okay, I guess Luke had the Sithy, but that's what we call it. It comes from... You know what? It comes from when we had coronavirus, and sorry, Brian and I are husband and wife. I love this.
It's like
Brian and I are husband and wife, and so we got coronavirus last fall. We played the Witcher game every single time, like you'd use your witchy senses. We go witchy, 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 and then when we started watching Rebels
from Pirates,
whenever Ezra would do something Sithy, we'd go Sithy, Sithy, and so Ezra. I think that's a good TLDR.
Yeah.
So so Ezra is super Sithy, and
what a great way to start season 3, where Kanan's like, Ezra, how are you able to open a Sith holocron? Only someone using the dark side can use that. And he's like,
what Sith holocron? I open what? I don't. It just opened. I don't know what happened. Yeah. And oh my gosh. And then Darth Maul is hilarious. He's like, you're my apprentice. It's like not even asking permission.
I actually, you really start to feel sorry for Darth Maul, because it's like he's just looking for someone to hang out with, really.
I'm pretty excited because he
could show up in this.
He could show up in this.
He will, I bet. And come on, Saw Gerrera. Let's get our Saw Gerrera. Come on, Brian. I need your Saw Gerrera take right now.
The subreddit unpopular opinion. Saw Gerrera did nothing wrong. He is absolutely the freedom fighter the rebellion needed. And the fact that the Second Order 66 happened, he's like, no, this is BS. The Empire is not right. The Jedi should not have been massacred, and I'm not down with this, and I'm going to lead freedom fighters. Like, I love Saw Gerrera.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, like, you almost can't really blame him for sort of going down a dark path, because really, if you look at it, starting in the show, like he's the one who's in this fight from the very beginning. It's like the Clone Wars ended, he was like, nope, this is not gonna fly. Like I'm going right back out there to fight. And so like you just feel really bad for him where he's like, we're gonna resist, we're gonna fight. It's like, man, dude, you're gonna be fighting for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be easy.
And even in his final days, when he's talking to Mon Mothma, he's like, I just, he's not saying you're the enemy and I don't agree with you. He's saying, there's the edge. I need to see the edge out of you that's going to lead this rebellion when I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like, he knows he's not going to last the whole time.
Yeah, Saw Gerrera was looking young and fresh in this.
And
we've seen a lot. I've seen, so I loved how he was in Fallen Order, which also... Okay, no, it was so funny. I'm like doing all of the math, right? Thinking of who could come into the show, right? So I'm thinking Darth Maul. I think he will. Darth Maul will because he's...
I think they're going to take their time because I think the thing
we've already got Saw Gerrera and...
Yeah, but the thing that I know they're always worried about with these shows is not jumping too strongly, too quickly into like saying that this is just a full-on like carryover of like all these storylines.
Yeah.
Which they are doing a bit more than they usually do because this feels
R2-D2 and CP3 have been in everything.
Yeah, this feels
They've
like
been in everything.
It feels like such a natural extension of Clone Wars that I think that they're more confident with like bringing in Saw and in episode 2 bringing back Cut, which I loved revisiting that storyline. Yeah,
and their boy who was voiced by Kath Soucie, Phil and Lil from Rugrats.
Yeah, that was a joy because again, it's like the show feels like a continuation of Clone Wars without being exactly Clone Wars. It's forging its own identity, but like you can't look at an episode like that and be like, and not realize that it's got a foot firmly planted in all that history from Clone Wars and that storytelling. I just think it's great.
And I could see it that maybe the Bad Batch just at some point they come in contact with elements of Crimson Dawn, and maybe that's the Maul head nod we get, the Easter egg.
I want that so bad. Like I've been dying for Darth Maul Crimson Dawn story material.
Yeah, because there's this gap between where he ended in Clone Wars and then a very brief comic thing about how he gets away from Palpatine, and then the next time we see him, he's again the head of a criminal syndicate. So it's like, okay, how did he get back there? Let's see it. And Bad Batch is in this era where it can happen, and it's like Christina was saying, this is an era where, okay, if Caleb Doom is this old, then that's how old Cal Kestis is.
Oh, I've been doing the math. Yeah.
And Ezra and Luke are the same age, so neither of them is really going to show up.
Well, Darth John hasn't played the video game.
Matthew, I'm starting to wonder if you're George Lucas.
I know, right? He's the dude.
Because actually,
the best Clone Wars episodes are the droid arcs.
Yeah, George loves that 4-episode arc with Admiral. I don't remember, but the real guy, the real little alien, and he's teamed up with the R2 and the other droids. It's the episodes where like one of the episodes is them just going through the desert for the whole episode.
I hate sand.
It's like a lot of people don't like those episodes. I actually find them.
How do you
really
feel about the Jar Jar episodes? How much are you looking forward to the Jar Jar cameo in Bad Batch?
No.
I'm living for it.
The 3-episode arc for Jar Jar in Bad Batch.
Maybe we can see Baby would be Yoda a bit being much. Born.
I'm
Wait,
okay.
where's Baby Yoda's training or Grogu's? Training.
We've uncovered the truth. No, like Jar Jar is great in like small doses. Like
we need animated like baby, even babier Grogu.
Yeah, Grogu at 50. I gotta tell you, if Yoda was
Grogu.
if Yoda was already teaching Jedi at 100, Grogu at 50 is underwhelming, and he's got some catching up to do.
I know. And okay, what about? Okay, this is what I'm seeing as just my perspective. Is I feel like they're, and I'm not mad about it. I'm just pointing it out. But it seems like they're kind of trying to recreate like that daddy energy.
Yeah!
That made Mandalorian successful with Hunter and Omega.
So yeah, Mandalorian is a remake of Lone Wolf and Cub. And
yeah, I mean, I'm like, this is like, your like daddy vision.
Yeah, instead of 3 men and a baby, it's like 4 clones and a baby.
But like, I mean, okay, I know Baby Yoda has the real cute factor working, but there's only so much communication that went on there between
like their souls.
Between Mando and Baby Yoda or Grogu. I've gotten called out by Steven.
Did you cry when he stopped that animal from in front of the cave?
Oh, the rhino thing?
Yeah, and you're like, oh my god.
No, the tears came out for me like at the end when he's like touching Mando's face. But they're able to do like different stuff on this show with Hunter and Omega. You know what? I've just decided that like this isn't just going to last for this stream. I'm just going to be calling her Omega like forever.
She's Omega.
But like I really like the back and forth between them. And like I was sobbing when she's like, "Did I do something wrong?" You know, it's like,
when it's like, Heck made 5 blockchains by accident.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you didn't tell her you're gonna leave her, and you just thought you were gonna spring it on her.
I did really love seeing like Hunter realizing how in over their heads the Bad Batch was when they see Cut being an actual father to these kids, like, and seeing how out of their league they were, where they were just like, we were just gonna kind of have her along, and like,
when he goes and he's like, "You're safe, honey," and
she didn't follow orders. Why did she want her? It's like, because she's a kid. You know, she's a kid, right? She's not a soldier. Like that was. I loved that scene.
Yeah, the contrast and but they're
look at Solid Snake there.
She chose him.
She did, and I feel like we're gonna have the Hunter Omega dynamic over the season.
But it's like it's not.
It's gonna be. I mean, I feel like it's gonna be like Mando. And
but see, this is where I think it's gonna be different. Though, because it's like we're focusing on Hunter now, but it's more like, you know, like 4 dads and a little girl, because you're getting to also see how she relates to some of the others. I am loving the connection that's being forged between her and Wrecker.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's been very
wait, isn't he like
subtle.
the Zeb?
Yeah, he's the Zeb.
Zeb energy.
When he bashed the troopers' heads together, when he did the like, oh yeah, I have my chain code right over here. Oh, he must be my other hand.
Yeah, no, him and I thought it, and he said, and Brian said it. I go, that's Zeb energy in my head, and he's like, that's Zeb energy. It's so he reminds me of Zeb. And you know what? They don't have a droid right now, which I kind of think is funny.
And Echo.
Which
I know,
by the way,
I
have to say that's probably the first time I've ever been happy for like injury to befall an R2 droid.
The one that like screaming like, "We got a clone over here!"
And then Wrecker's just like, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, I love that moment, like right after that, between like the two of them, when he's like, they're waiting for you, and it's like he is like the fun uncle basically to her. And I really, the thing about Wrecker is like when he first was on Clone Wars, I thought that characterization is a little much. He's like, the big guy who loves violence.
Did they just play Team Fortress 2 once and say, "What if the heavy was a clone"?
Yeah, but I'm really liking like the softer sides that we're getting to see, and we're only 2 episodes in. It's like I'm very much looking forward to see how that develops, and also we're starting to see a dynamic between also Echo and Tech, where it's like they're bantering back and forth. It's like, this was a terrible play.
I love it.
I like Tech a lot.
They're the ones that have the most overlap, right? Because
Yeah.
Echo's not actually a defective / enhanced clone. He just had a very unfortunate time in Separatist hands.
He's a reg. I love that they say regs.
I love that.
I love regs.
Like, oh, he's a reg.
I know, it reminds me of like marijuana terms.
Oh my god.
You're a reg. You're a perp.
That was hilarious. And he's just that's like the subtle stuff with Wrecker, where it's just like stuff he's doing in the background is some of the funniest.
Oh my god, do you think we'll see Chopper? I mean, I want to see him. I miss him.
I mean, I don't know. I'd say like anything's on the table.
Oh my gosh.
The thing but I did want to mention this, like we're talking about the connections to Clone Wars. There's a lot of stuff that Filoni didn't get to resolve on Clone Wars, especially like related to like Boba Fett and Cad Bane and that whole bounty hunter storyline.
Cad Bane.
And I really want to see that stuff carry over and fleshed out in this show, which I feel like he's not going to pass up that opportunity. There's no way.
I feel like we never really got as much exploration as I would have wanted with the psychological effects of Boba Fett killing clones, because he does it in Clone Wars. He's killing people with his dad's face / his future face.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... And I talked about this with somebody a couple months ago when we found out that why can't I remember her name? On Mandalorian, who's Ming-Na Wen's character.
Fennec Shard.
Fennec. She's gonna be, at least in an episode of this. I hope they use her a lot.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And my thought was like, they didn't really specify whether her and Boba Fett had been acquainted before. Right. And I'd really like them to take the opportunity to maybe bring Boba Fett in and establish like a backstory with him and Fennec in this show, which I think would be awesome.
That'd be great. I'm a big fan of Ming-Na Wen. She is one of the only people to carry off the Disney hat trick. She is a Disney princess. She is in the Marvel universe, and she is in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's like when she guest starred in that one episode of season 1 of The Mandalorian, I was like, oh, that was such a waste. She's such a great actress. And then, of course, when they brought her back in season 2, and then gave us that tease in the finale where she's launching into her own show with Tamara Morrison, I was like, okay, that's more like it.
Yep.
That's going to be so great. I cannot wait for the Boba Fett show.
And she did. I loved her in the second season of Mandalorian, and it's like you said, she has this dynamic with Boba Fett where like you can justify it and say it's just gratitude because Boba Fett saved her, but it'd be amazing if she knew him beforehand, and if we're going to get to see that in Bad Batch.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool, and strategically that would help draw an audience for the spinoff. So it seems like that would make sense, because I mean everything, not I like that it's not to the extent of Marvel. Sorry, and I'll just
I know that's the thing. I'm a total
you should be able to start. You should be able to, because I mean, okay, for example, I'm a person who did it backwards. It doesn't mean that I'm like less than, okay, but it's nice that I watched Rebels without watching Clone Wars before, and I was fine.
Yeah, you can still enjoy these shows
Yeah.
without having done all your homework with all these precursor shows.
Like, I don't need to watch, like, 60 hours of something to enjoy
Yeah.
this. And that's
No-
how it should be. And I
No,
think,
I-
I mean, that's why The Mandalorian was successful.
I
Right?
think the difference would be like if they did lay in the backstory for Fennec and Boba Fett in this, that would still be telling its own story
Exactly.
within like this time frame. It's like you don't have to see that to understand what the plot of like the Boba Fett series is going to be, or
Right.
or anything. It's just it's telling another story at a different time that happens to feature those characters.
Yeah,
And-
it's still compelling and it builds, and because I mean, obviously you don't, to understand Darth Maul, you're not even like watching the thing that he started in, right? Because he had like a line in the first movie and then they expanded on him. And I really do love what they're doing in this universe. I love that they're finding these years and they're building them out so epically, and I don't know, just hats off to them. I feel like they're getting it right in a way that is almost like envious to other franchises, right? It's not in a way where you have to like watch everything. It's not in a way that's like the canon is so, I don't know. I'm thinking in my head, like the first example was obviously Marvel. The second example I'm thinking of is like Game of Thrones, where everyone's getting like really upset when something's not like the books. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of fluid, and I think that they're doing a good job with it because they're like built, it's a whole universe, right? Like quite literally.
And they have
So
all
they
these
can build
spaces to
out
fill in.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they can still connect things in a way that's still accessible without, it's satisfying when you, especially if you're invested in it and you've like read and watched everything, it's extremely satisfying, but like you don't need to do that to understand what's happening. I think that's important, especially with Disney, who's trying to like market to as wide an audience as possible. They have a ton invested in this,
and that's
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna see Rex in Bad Batch.
Oh, yeah.
Just because we see him in Clone Wars,
He's
see him in
mentioned
Rebels,
he's mentioned in episode 2.
and
So
there's not a lot in between. And why would they bother to mention, oh, Rex just came by and saw Cut the day before? If they're not, that's a Chekhov's gun at this point. In this self-contained series, Rex has been brought up and there's no payoff. We're going to see him later, I think.
So then the question then, of course, is are we going to see Ahsoka too?
Yeah.
Because
when do they separate? Yeah.
they really
But also,
want
are they going to be able to get the voice actor for Rex back? That's the big question. Because if not, they may as well not. Sorry.
oh my gosh. I mean, I wonder if they'll ever bring in Jedi Fallen Order characters. That's my thing.
So we're
Maybe
not
not in
outside the
this.
range of an Inquisitor. We could get a second sister appearance.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm trying to think.
Because what's their project name where
Oh my
they're
god, what
grabbing
if
up
they
all the
brought
little
in
kids?
BD1?
That like
That's my second. I don't know. I feel like Chopper and BD1 are my favorite droids.
Oh yeah, they're great. We have a force sensitive kid in this show potentially.
Yeah.
So that by itself, would that give us an opening to have Inquisitors appear?
True.
If if it becomes known that she's force sensitive for whatever reason, some big display to save the Bad Batch or something, that could open the door to just about anyone in this era. Like any of the Inquisitors are around. There's the Grand Inquisitor, Second Sister, Seventh Sister. Anyone you want. You could have any cameo.
And so, like, what do we think about? I mean, I feel like Darth Vader.
Oh yeah.
The new Darth Vader will come in, but what does that mean? Sorry, I'm like trying to think. The new Darth Vader.
Darth Vader's tough because if he shows up, how does? Yeah.
And like who's around then, you know? Like
so Darth
right
Vader's
after.
almost like too much of a threat because the Bad Batch against Darth Vader. I'm not betting on the Bad Batch there.
Well, it's like even in Rebels, it's like they had to pull back on Vader after season 2 because once you no longer like he was brought in because the Ahsoka matchup was like too hard to pass up, but it becomes like it's Vader. Like there's only so long you're gonna
Oh
you
my
know
gosh.
you're gonna run
I don't
circles
want to
around
spoil the
him.
video game for anybody, but it's really funny.
They handled Darth Vader really well in the video game.
And
Yeah.
but I will say honestly, like it was the best decision they could have made for Rebels to pull back on Vader and bring Thrawn in as the principal villain for
Yep.
seasons 3 and 4 because that just made that show come alive in ways that it even hadn't already. So
I know. I was looking it up, and like Thrawn's not going to be in this.
Well, because story-wise for him, it doesn't make sense in the timeline, but you know he's.
Ooh, we have a theory.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine like because I feel like they're going with a darker, you know, more grown-up edge for this series. So I think it's
Wrecker going down in a blaze of glory.
Oh, but see,
what about Omega? Come on.
I don't want to think about that yet. It's like we're 2 episodes in. Just let me be happy for a little bit.
Omega, make it out.
Yeah, she's getting abandoned at the like train station or whatever.
It's like the show starts off
left
with
at the hospital steps.
The show starts off with Order 66, and I'm talking about staying happy.
Yeah, I'm throwing darts at the dartboard. I'm going to say Wrecker, a redeemed Crosshair, maybe even at his moment of redemption, and Echo are definitely all going to die saving Omega / the Bad Batch.
Oh.
I could see Hunter and maybe Tech making it through.
Do we know? I mean, do we know if it's like a series versus seasons?
I don't even know how many episodes it is.
I know. I was sitting there.
It's a total of 16 episodes
for the whole series or
for the season.
Oh,
for the season. They haven't said definitively that they're going to get more seasons, but I think they said they're hoping, you know, if it does well. So it's not just like one-off.
There's definitely a grand plan though by Filoni, right? I mean, I don't think it's a secret, hopefully, but there's supposed to be a big event that's supposed to tie what shows Mandalorian, Ahsoka, and
because the Mandalorian, Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and the what's the other one? The
Rangers of the
Rangers of the Republic are supposed
Star
to
unknown.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to culminate.
Oh yeah, not Cara Dune. We don't talk about Cara Dune in this anymore, right?
Yeah, season 3 of Mandalorian is just going to be like, oh, did we have another cast member? No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Wait, I just sent you the meme. It's like Cara Dune died in an X-wing crash. LOL.
Yeah, it's the Star Wars title crawl. Yeah. It's just Cara Dune crashed her X-wing and died. Lol.
Oh yeah. But no, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that all ties into, finding Thrawn and Ezra, but maybe, I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at Beach. I'm looking at the Bad Batch and Omega and all of this stuff, and I'm just like wondering how it all fits. The timeline's really interesting, how it's right on the heels of the Clone Wars, which we haven't seen before. Love that. It's pre-Rebel. Like, how long is that before Rebels then?
14 to 15
I'm trying to think
years?
of like how old Kanan got.
It's 18 years between the Empire comes into existence and the Death Star, because Luke is 18.
Yeah. Okay.
So Rebels is probably Rebels season 1 is probably like 3 years before that, roughly.
Okay.
So
yeah.
15 years to cover.
And that's what I like about this period. It's like there's plenty of space so that we don't exactly know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
In terms of these characters, it's very sort of open.
It's really interesting to see how quickly the Empire is, specifically Tarkin, I guess, is like, here are people who fought with us literally yesterday, but we're not sure if they're really loyal to the Empire now, like Saw Gerrera and the Onderon contingent. So go murder them. We don't know for sure if they're going to be loyal to us, so go murder them. Like how many of those purges are happening around the galaxy right now? Like, we got the Jedi, but now let's take out the non-Jedi who might still be sympathetic to the old Republic.
I wonder if we'll see Hera at all. If we saw it, Yeah,
she's on Ryloth.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I love all the possibilities, and there's so much to do.
I mean,
but I feel like Filoni is a great. I mean, obviously he's an excellent storyteller, but I definitely feel like he. I don't know, like a chess master. I feel like he's thinking like 10 moves ahead.
I love the idea of chess master. I think he's a kid with the toy box, and he's just like, which toy do I want to
play with?
No. See, that's the way I view Jon Favreau.
Oh, that's true.
I think he's the one with the toys out.
Have you watched
I think Filoni is. I think that's right. I think Filoni is the guy playing chess, and on The Mandalorian, and Jon Favreau is like, can I bring these toys out to play with?
Yeah.
We have to do an episode about
what about an IG droid, right? Yeah, we could have that be the nanny.
We got Disney money. Let's use it.
Okay,
paid $4 million for this franchise. You better milk it.
So we're having to wind down here, but and what do you say, guys? Who's your favorite Bad Batch character?
Crosshair.
Really?
I want to see the redemption arc. I don't think this is going to end with him as a bad guy, and I'm curious to see how it's going to go. Even if it's them trying in vain to save him, and it's only in his last moment that he comes back to the squad. But I think there'll be a payoff there, and I really enjoy him.
I mean, I hate to be basic and say Omega, but at the same time, I will say that because this is my thing with all fantasy, is that I'm really interested in the magic and the sources, and I'm really interested. I think that she's Force sensitive, but I'm really interested to see how, like, her interpretation of that, and especially if she's a clone and all. I'm excited to learn more about her and what she can do. Obviously, you can tell she's being set up to be important and powerful. And I'm excited to see how that expresses itself and like what I can learn about the universe from it and what those applications mean. I love, obviously, the Clone Wars episodes about the father, the brother, and the sister, and how that also went into Rebels. I love that. And that has really had me thinking so much about the Force and like, what is it? Like, how is it being used? And even the Night Sisters, how they use the Force in a really different, cool way. I think about, I mean, that's what gets me going. And thinking about all these energy sources. And Brian was even saying like, oh, you have the father, the brother, and the sister, and that's like the Jedi, the Sith, and the Gray, and then the mother could have been the Night Sister.
It is interesting that there's the father, the son, and daughter, and conspicuously absent is the mother in the new canon, and then over here leading the Night Sisters with their own version of Force use is Mother Talzin.
Yeah, and like, what's the green goo? I mean, I don't even know, but I want to know, and I love all of that. Like, that stuff gets me going. It's almost like this. Is it like a higher power or what? And I love all of that, but I really like Tech a lot. He kind of reminds me of Thrawn. So right? So I'll put
Very pragmatic.
Those two are like they're polar opposites, but I'll say like those are my favorite characters for, those reasons.
What about you?
Well, my like you guys did pretty much say my choice. I was going to go for either Omega or Tech, because Tech is just so analytical about everything. I like when Hunter is like, you didn't say anything about it in Chip, and he's like, well, how else do you think it was done?
Yeah.
But I'm gonna give some love to Wrecker, just because
He's just fun.
Yeah, I just, and I love that, he's got his little doll that Omega finds for him. He's like, you found my Lulu.
Yeah, when he's staring through the room, where is it?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing like the dimensions we get to dig into him.
I'm really excited. I don't even know what I was expecting, because I was like, oh, it's a bunch of guys. I don't know. Sorry. I was like, well, first I thought it was the Bad Biatch show, and I was like, oh, what's this about? Oh, what? It's a bunch of guys? Oh, it's a bunch of clones, and I'm kind of like, okay. After coming off The Mandalorian and like the excitement about Ahsoka and getting something pre-Rebels, and it's not like building off of it. I wasn't so sure. My expectations weren't really high, but even out of the gate, within the first 2 minutes, I was dazzled.
Yeah, they did a great job of getting you
Yeah.
really emotionally invested
right out of the gate.
Yeah. Because I get
Yeah.
that for new viewers, it can certainly just seem like, what, it's a show about a group of clones. Why should I be interested in that? It's easy enough for like diehard Clone Wars fans when we're like, but it's a continuation of Clone Wars, and like this is going into post Order 66 and all that. But for people who like aren't invested in Clone Wars and that whole storyline, I think they definitely needed to find a way to hook people, and the way they did the opening, and the fact that it's once again sort of an adopted child narrative.
The opening was Chef's Kiss with Kanan. As a Rebels fan, it's like, thank you, Dave, King Dave. And yeah, I mean, I'm hooked. Like, I'm invested, and I definitely wasn't sure, and then now I'm like slapping myself in the face for doubting it, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's definitely an ensemble show, but it's nice to see Hunter is probably the closest or the most protagonist. Just, you see him very briefly in the Caleb Doom scenario where he wants to save this kid. He keeps the kid alive, but he wants to help him. He wants to take him and protect him, and he isn't able to do that. And now he's able to do that with Omega.
Yeah.
And it's going to be interesting to see where that goes.
And I do want to say before we close out, there was one other part that I just found utterly hilarious. So I wanted to mention it. It's when Tech has the plan to get the ship impounded, and Hunter's like, "You did what?" And he's like, "There's just one big problem. Omega's still on the ship." And then the camera pans over, and she's like, "I think it's a really good plan, Tech."
Yup.
It's cute, and they have good dialogue, right?
The banter is on point.
Good dialogue. It's not. I think there was maybe one line where I was like, oh, maybe that was like a little hokey, but there is that the right word for it? Yeah, like just.
The band
Not to
was
get into the
pretty
Marvel dialogue thing again, but there was like one line, but the dialogue is well done. I think they have chemistry, right? I'm not looking at Omega thinking I'm not annoyed with her. I like her.
Yes.
And that's
And
hard.
that's hard
for
to
a
do
little
with.
kid. That's hard for a little kid. I don't generally like little kids. So sorry. But yeah, no, I'm so excited to see where this goes
And I do want to just at the end here throw out credit to, like, we've been singing the praises of Dave Filoni, but he is not working alone on this series. It's also the showrunners are Jennifer Corbett and Brad Rao, and Jennifer Corbett wrote the pilot with Dave Filoni. I thought, just fantastic job. I'm really looking forward to that. And also, the second episode was written by, and I'm going to butcher this because I haven't heard it pronounced, so please forgive me. Gursimran Sandhu. I think, I'm sure that's wrong, so I'm sorry. But she actually was an assistant and a staff writer on Game of Thrones. So I found that really interesting. She hasn't really been a part of Lucasfilm or anything Star Wars before, so I thought that was interesting. I thought she did a great job writing episode 2. So I'm looking forward to seeing what other talent they're bringing in to write for the show. And hey, Steven, yeah, we're actually just wrapping up. There were spoilers for Clone Wars anyway, so it's just as well that you weren't here, because you still have to catch up, buddy. But yeah, so any final comments, guys, before we go?
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Thank you for coming on. I really want to have you guys back. We'll talk some more Star Wars stuff. Get into Thrawn, because I know you guys are itching to talk.
What?
about him. So.
Who? No, I know.
Like, I am so hoping and praying that they do bring back.
No, they have to.
Lars
if they don't, I will die.
Yeah, Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn, because there's no other voice for Thrawn for
we
me.
need the Thrawn Ezra show. Oh my gosh, I have my home. I could write a fanfic if I wanted to, but I won't.
I saw the most interesting tinfoil theory for who they would cast as Thrawn. So when Star Wars Celebration 2017 or 18, one of those, did a mural of all these Star Wars characters, they had Thrawn in there before he had appeared in Rebels, or just it looked like a live action version of him, and they absolutely took a silhouette shot of Pierce Brosnan and just made him blue. And someone found the actual shot of Pierce Brosnan that they rotoscoped or traced over or whatever. And I was thinking about it. It's like, I could deal with Pierce Brosnan as Thrawn too if they were able to get him. That would work.
See, and this is really interesting to me. Like, I agree.
Oh wait, he's in Rebels.
Yeah, but the
not,
animation on
the
Clone Wars
yeah.
is different, and like, I don't want them to like shoehorn him in just for the hell of it. But if there's a reason for him to, like, he
was not going to be in Bad Batch because he doesn't. So he gets found.
We would need an encounter with Commander Mithran. Commander Mithran Nurodo.
Unless they go to the Outer Rim, because he's, spoiler alert for the
he's not from the Republic.
Well, no, I mean, sorry, spoiler alert for the if you want to read the Thrawn novels, but he's chilling out in the Outer Rim. He meets Anakin Skywalker, but that's before the Bad Batch. So Anakin has already met Thrawn. So Thrawn exists, but Thrawn's like out there. He's out there. He's not anywhere near he doesn't come into the known.
Yeah, unless if the Bad Batch flees to the unknown region.
Yeah.
There
Then
there could be a chance encounter, maybe.
I would love it. I want to see Chiss Thrawn.
Yeah, that would be actually a way to do a really different version of Thrawn from Rebels if they really wanted to. So
Real Thrawn, where he's in the Chiss Ascendancy and he's.
Oh my God, Chiss! I would love to see Chiss Ascendancy Thrawn like interacting with anyone, and oh my gosh, I just love him so much. I mean, him and Tech, but that's the thing. I feel like Tech is, I feel like Thrawn would like. Okay, sorry. Now I'm writing a fan fiction.
Yeah, they both just have their hands clasped behind their backs as they stand
You'd be like,
6 feet apart and just exchange information. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait. Will you do your Thrawn impression, please?
The most important thing to know about the Bad Batch is that all of the information we are able to obtain about them is that they are a batch who is bad.
These malfunctions are actually enhancements.
You consider these aberrations to be negative, but in fact they are specializations that make these clones more adept in combat situations than a typical squad.
I know, right? Our headcanon is that Thrawn is actually super high.
Why his eyes are red.
I mean, anyway. It would have to be, right? The age acceleration, because
they're about the same age as the oldest clones. So unless the Bad Batch was created 10 years before the others, I think. I think they have the 2x accelerator going on. So
unless it's broken, like their chips, where is that stored?
But they're, they appear to be the same age as the oldest clones.
I know.
So if it broke, oh yeah.
Sorry, I'm just doing my analyst thing where I'm trying to break your model.
If they survive, the ones who survived the Bad Batch probably have another good 20 to 30 years in them, and then they'll pass of old age. Because Rex and all them 15 years later are already looking 60.
Unless they tragically all die, and sacrificing themselves for Omega.
Who then
becomes what?
Spinoff. And then we have a spinoff. I don't know. She goes out. She goes out to the outer rim. I don't know. I'm sending everyone to Thrawn's Chiss Ascendancy. That if they're not in episodes,
where did they go? They went to the unknown
they're
regions.
In the Chiss. They're. If I like them, they're in the Chiss. That's my headcanon.
I am having a really good time with the Bad Batch, but if they make Omega into Madam Snoke, I am not going to be happy.
Yeah.
She's the Bendu.
Which, by the way, is I know you guys clearly already think this, but the Bendu is one of the greatest characters ever.
I love it. I stand the Bendu. I know.
I'm the one in the middle. The Bendu.
Oh my God!
I am the Bendu.
No, when Thrawn shot at him, that was the one time I was mad at him. I was I picked Bendu over Thrawn, I guess.
Bendu's just out here living Bendu life.
I know, I love him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love
Bendu.
I love Bendu because he's he says, yeah, you're dark side and light side shit. It's doesn't really,
where's Ahsoka at?
Bendu met Ahsoka. They have a sketch of what that meeting was supposed to be. It didn't get animated, but they canonically meet.
Wait.
I know.
Well, all right. Well, we should wrap this up, right?
Yeah, I've kept you guys over what.
That's okay. We have a family Zoom coming up and everything, but no, I think come on, Bert. We had an awesome time. Yeah. I know.
I'm sorry we went so off topic, but it's hard to talk about one Star Wars show in a vacuum.
No, and I mean I loved it because there's so many connections. So I feel like we did like we didn't go nearly as off topic as Christina, Amy, and I did on the Pirates of the Caribbean stream. So
What? I already told you what my mom said. Love you, Mom.
And thank you guys for tuning in. I know this was kind of a last minute stream, but yeah, I really wanted to talk about this show. And as soon as I had other Star Wars fans to talk about it with me, I was like, we're doing this. So yeah, like I said, I would love for you guys to come back and talk more Star Wars with me. And Christina, we are definitely having you back for the Pirate sequels. So be ready for that.
All right.
We'll try to take it easy on the Marvel fans.
I know it's not you, it's me.
I
Probably.
like
I know.
But thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you so much. We love this.
Oh, that's very clever.
That reminds me of the Spaceballs with the vacuum.
The vacuum of space. Yeah.
Yes.
And yeah, I just have to close out on that brilliant observation by my brother Steven. So
we love you, Steven.
Yeah, and so yeah, I am going to go record in just a little bit the X2 podcast with Amy, Kelly, and our friend Jenna. So you guys watching this, stay tuned for that tomorrow, because you can catch that as a premiere at 7:00. So aside from that, yeah, I guess that's it. Hope you all have a wonderful night. And thank you again, guys, for coming on. I had a great time.
We did too.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Good night, guys.